Everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather, 28th day of November 2021. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, we've got looking at some pretty cold temperatures around Susitna, Matanuska Valley, and on down into the Anchorage area, and turning an arm with Willow and Houston and Eagle River. All three areas there having a low this morning at 24 degrees below zero. And some winters go by where they don't get that cold anytime during the winter, although Willow in November has been down in the lower minus 30s. I think in 2009 in November they were down that low for a couple of days in a row. Otherwise, even Wasilla down to 22 below, and wait, that's not spelled correctly. Cheyenne L, and one too many S's there in Wasilla. Anyway, they were 22 below this morning, and Portage 21 below there at the road of the Seward Highway meets the Portage Road. Road, let's call it. Wouldn't call it a highway. Anyway, they were 21 below. That's pretty good for there. Fort Richardson also 21 below, and Butte 21 below zero. Point McKenzie there across the arm from Anchorage, 20 degrees below zero. And double these values and going the other way up to the north, or actually on the Western Alaska Range, or west of the Western Alaska Range, Eastern Kuskokwim Valley, Stony, 48 below zero. They're kind of a higher valley, about 1,500 feet, and that makes it a little proner to getting colder temperatures, but it's been one cold November over there. Arctic Village, Buckland, 42 below, Antioch at minus 40, Birch Creek, kind of all over the state here, all over the interior of these locations, 40 degrees below zero. Now we're sliding into December. This would just be any run-of-the-mill cold snap you'd expect in the winter time. These temperatures, the ones we saw earlier, a little more impressive. And from there, taking a look at the hazardous weather graphic, blizzard warning out for the Fox Islands until 9 a.m. Monday morning. Eastern Aleutians, Fox Islands. Above freezing on the temperatures today with snow falling, but once we expect the temperatures to go back below freezing when the winds turn more northeasterly later on tonight and into early tomorrow. So that'll bring temperatures back below freezing, and then the blowing snow will kick back in again and picking up about 4 to 8 inch additional accumulations with winds gusting 60 to 75 miles an hour. And then up to the north there, or actually let's go up the Alaska Peninsula. Winter weather advisory there, blowing snow, and gusts to possibly as high as 50 to 60 miles an hour for the Alaska Peninsula. That'll reduce visibilities down to half mile or less at times in blowing snow. And then Kodiak Island, same thing, winter weather advisory out with a storm coming in later tonight and into tomorrow for 1 to 8 inches of snow there, gusts to 45 to 50 miles an hour. Visibility is half mile or less in snow and blowing snow. And again, that's later tonight and into Monday. And for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Yakutat and the surrounding area there, 2 to 6 inches of snow advisory there, as well as the northern panhandle, even Sitka down to Port Alexander could pick up 2 to 6 inches of snow, more likely though the Juneau area. And that's winter weather advisory out through tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow night. Up to the north there, you'll see just north of the Alaska Range, kind of a thin yellow area. That's a wind chill advisory for Delta Junction for wind chills to 50 degrees below zero. And let's see, that's out for tonight into 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. And then farther to the north, let me advance one slide and get a better view of that. The red area there, that's a wind chill warning for the eastern Alaska Range through the passes. And actually, I'm not sure why it's not across the entire Brooks Range. Howard Pass to the west, they're seeing wind chills 74 degrees below zero. But anyway, the eastern Alaska Range wind chill warning out for 60 to 70 degree below zero wind chills through tonight, and then a wind chill advisory for the eastern Arctic coast there. And that's seeing lighter winds, but anywhere there's a breeze blowing, you're going to see wind chills around 50 degrees below zero there. And also a wind chill advisory out for the higher elevations of the White Mountains. Let's see, Summit in that area just north of Fairbanks there, that's out until 3 p.m. tomorrow for wind chills of 50 degrees below zero. I think that about covers it all, except wind chill advisory tonight for Thompson Pass and into tomorrow for wind chills to 40 degrees below zero. And from there, satellite imagery showing a really wound up storm there coming onto the map, or coming onto the image there south of the Fox Islands. And that as that approached, that brought milder air in, and the snow pushed the temperatures back above freezing as the Arctic air kind of gets cut off to the north and redirected to the west, coming down into the Pribilofs. Temperatures under 20 degrees at St. Paul, about 18 there, but 28 at St. George, with winds gusting 35 to 45 miles an hour out of the northeast. And then very strong winds there, Unmak Island, and also on Alaska, seeing some pretty gusty winds. But again, that brought 74 mile an hour wind gusts to Nikolsky as that occluded front pushed up there. Winds on the increase, gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour currently over the Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay, and King Cove, False Pass in those areas. Otherwise, cold, clear day for the most part. Kodiak Island, several inches of snow fell around the Homer area, Homer Bluff area there, as cold air coming out of the Kamishak Gap across the bay picked up moisture. Southern Cook Inlet dropped it as snow all day and most of the night there at Homer, light snow, picking up several inches. And some light snow as far north of Seldovia here this afternoon in that pattern. Otherwise, moisture, southwest flow kept wet conditions over the Panhandle. That all fell as snow with any elevation at all, but amounts generally under an inch today. Maybe a third to half an inch in some areas, about 1300s of Juneau. Not too heavy yet, but that's going to continue. Snowfall levels will continue to fall. And for the running this through again, still cold air coming southward and then shifting off to the southwest there over the northern Bering Sea. And on the chart today, areas of light snow over the central and northern interior. Dry to the west with most of the clearing down over the southwest part of the state. Low pressure just south of Prince William Sound. And again, areas of light snow, eastern North Gulf Coast, and rain and snow in the Panhandle. Mostly falling as snow most areas except down south. Rain at sea level. And then the very tight pressure field with that 957 millibar low that's moved south of the eastern Aleutians, really kicking the winds up Alaska Peninsula and the Pribilofs, and the strongest winds, of course, over the eastern Aleutians there, but pretty windy across the southern Bering Sea with areas of rain and snow all the way out to the Komodorskis. For tonight, that blowing snow advances to Kodiak Island and into the Aleutian Range and southern Bristol Bay, and snow chances continue to increase over southern Cook Inlet, probably staying dry north of the Forelands, and snow pushing into Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and rain or snow showers, areas of light rain or snow, northern Panhandle. Probably looking at mostly snow, though, for tonight. Clear and cold again, or variably cloudy and cold. Again, temperatures will be quite variable due to the cloud cover and any wind that blows. Otherwise, pretty dry. And strong northeast winds in the Aleutians become a little more northerly and shift eastward, pulling the cold air back into the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula tomorrow, pulling it right out of the southwest interior. A lot less wind up towards St. Lawrence Island, with areas of light snow covering much of the Bering Sea, heavier from the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. And that south to southeast flow, that's going to just probably lift the snowfall level above sea level at some point in the day tomorrow for Kodiak Island, and that'll change over to rain. And snow and blowing snow pushes into southern Cook Inlet across the Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, and big increase in the winds, gale force winds for the Panhandle. And for Tuesday, windy, rainy, snowy for the Panhandle. Snow, blowing snow, southern Alaska. Clear and very cold. Low wind chills continue through the passes of the Brooks Range. Cold and snowy for the eastern Bering Sea. Lows tonight in the 30 to 40 degree below zero range. Kuskokwim Valley, minus 20s. Copper River Basin, highs tomorrow, upper 20s. Northern Panhandle to near 40 south. Upper 30s, Kodiak Island. Lows Tuesday morning. Staying above zero, looks like south central Alaska, Susitna Valley, but still in the single numbers. 14 for Homer, upper 20s Kodiak, a little below zero Bristol Bay, warmer for the Kuskokwim Valley, Copper River Basin, and mid-40s for the high southern Panhandle, low 30s for the north Tuesday afternoon. Up to the north, very cold night tonight, 35 to 45 below, and highs tomorrow below zero again, 15 to 30 below for the highs, a little milder to the southwest, and then followed by lows again, 25 to 35 below, except St. Lawrence Island staying above zero, highs below zero once again.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We've got an area of IFR there, central north slope on out toward Dead Horse and eastern Arctic coast here a little bit. Marginal VFR over to the Mackenzie Bay area. VFR south of the Brooks Range all the way down into Cook Inlet. Marginal VFR though on the increase southern Cook Inlet, Ketchimak, Kamishak Bays, and up and across Copper River Basin. IFR eastern North Gulf Coast and Yakutat and the east side of the Panhandle. IFR also Fognak Island westward across the Alaska Peninsula on Alaska Island, and then a band northward east of the Pribilofs between Nunivak, St. Matthew Island to Gamble. Marginal VFR Bering Sea and all of the Aleutians. For the afternoon, marginal VFR pushes across all of Cook Inlet up to Knik Arm, most of the Susitna Valley, and IFR, Prince William Sound from Resurrection Bay there, up across eastern Turnagain Arm, right into the central Copper River Basin, west central areas. And marginal VFR north slope to the eastern Arctic coast, narrow band of IFR from Gamble southward to the Bristol Bay area, actually Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, with some VFR breaking out over the western Aleutians. Areas of IFR there along the North Gulf Coast from Kodiak Island, but pretty solid in over the southeast coast. Tuesday morning, solid IFR for the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound, and southern half of the Copper River Basin, marginal VFR up to the eastern Alaska Range, and actually sliding all the way up to Eagle there. Otherwise, VFR, most of the interior, Cook Inlet marginal, Kodiak Island marginal, IFR central Arctic, or central north slope to the eastern Arctic coast there, and for the Alaska Peninsula into the southeast Bering Sea, some IFR. Otherwise, marginal VFR for the Aleutians and the remainder of the Bering Sea. And for Tuesday afternoon, no change out west, marginal VFR over a big area out there. Nunivak Island, though, southwest coast northward, Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, Noatak Valley, into the Kobuk Valley, VFR, as well as the lower Yukon River Valley, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Togiak Bay, VFR, marginal VFR elsewhere, IFR central north slope, IFR eastern, or North Gulf Coast, into western Prince William Sound, northern Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin, southwest Kodiak Island, and still conditions low in the Panhandle. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR, and Anatuvik, also occasional marginal VFR, especially north side, both passes VFR to the south. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR. Rainy, marginal. And windy, marginal VFR possible on the southern entrance, otherwise VFR. And Isabel, IFR. Mintasta, VFR. And for Tanita, IFR on the east entrance, otherwise marginal VFR. And for Portage, IFR east side, otherwise marginal. And for Chilcoot and White, pretty looks like coming down to IFR, both passes. Freezing level just north of the Aleutians, cutting down across Unalaska Island, but south of the Alaska Peninsula, southern Gulf of Alaska to just off the coast of the Panhandle, cutting down across Dixon Entrance. Icing, chance of isolated moderate, all of the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, along the Aleutian chain, southern Bering Sea and western Bering Sea. Gets a little iffy over the western Aleutians. Otherwise, icing free everywhere else, eastern Bering and northern central interior. Jet stream, upper level low, up over the right over the almost Kotzebue there, with another low just southwest of Nunivak Island. And then one cutting up to the eastern North Gulf Coast. Southwest flow now across the central interior, 65 knots. The main jet a little farther to the north, but still south of the Panhandle, 155 knots across the Queen Charlottes. Northerly 75 over the western Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, sharp ridging over the western Bering Sea down to Shimianatu. North winds up to 40 to 45 knots, central Bering Sea down to just west of Adak, and then that sharp trough there from along the western interior, and pretty light winds there, but southwest 40 knots, southern Alaska, 50 knots out of the southwest for the Panhandle. And 3,000 feet, east-northeast flow, narrow band there about 40 knots through the north-central interior, becomes a little more widespread over the southeast Bering up to 55 knots for the Fox Islands, east 60 knots, north Gulf Coast, or actually across Middleton Island. Turbulence, considerable moderate chop, all the Panhandle, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians all the way up to about Kiska, and areas along the Yukon River Valley looking pretty bumpy.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up, at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particled paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, Its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Looking at the ice analysis from 8 days ago on the 20th of November and comparing it today, significant difference here in the last week and a day. As you'll see, let's see, there we go. Really expanding westward and southwestward there, and southward in the case of Bristol Bay and northern Cook Inlet, big increase in the sea ice, as well as Kamishak Bay. And you can see, let me back that up again and show that it's now past St. Lawrence Island, past Nunivak Island. Next stop, St. Matthew Island. And that trend and growth is going to continue for the next 4 or 5 days. Moving on to coastal water forecast. Now jump there to the gale warnings along the Panhandle. South winds 35 knots, south coast, and southeast winds 35 to 40 knots for Monday on the north coast. Lynn Canal much lighter, southeast of 15, and Stevens Passage about 20 knots from the southeast. But small craft advisories for Clarence Strait. Southeast winds increasing to 25 knots, seas coming up to 5 feet. And for Tuesday, south coast, small craft advisories, southwest 30 knots, seas 17 to 18 feet. And small craft advisories on the north coast, southerlies 25 knots, north 25 knots. Another push of colder air coming into Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, northern inner channels with 5-foot seas. Stevens Passage, southeast 20 knots and southeast 25 knots for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound tomorrow, northeast winds 30 knots, seas 7 feet. North winds 30 knots for northern Cook Inlet with 12-foot seas. North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands, all out of the east. Gale warnings, 40-knot winds, seas 11 to 13 feet. And southern Cook Inlet, almost a storm warning out, but high-end gales, 45 knots out of the northeast. Kamishak Bay, there is a storm warning for northeast winds of 50 knots, seas just under 30 feet. And then for Tuesday, gale warnings south of the Forelands, Cook Inlet, north winds 40 knots, northwest 40 knots for the Kamishak Bay area, northwest 30 for Barren Islands, west-northwest 25 for the North Gulf Coast, but seas still up around 15 feet. Prince William Sound, north winds 20 knots, seas at 4 feet. Kodiak Island, gale warnings, east-northeast 40 to 45 knots, 15 to 22-foot seas. Alaska Peninsula gale warnings, northeast winds 35 to 40 knots, 16-foot seas there on either side. And Bristol Bay, northeast at 30 knots with 7-foot seas. Even stronger winds, gale warnings out for Bristol Bay on Tuesday. Northwest 40 knots, 11-foot seas. Gale warnings also for the Alaska Peninsula, northwest 40 to 45 knots. In fact, Cape Sarachev up to Sitkinak has a 45 knot gale force wind warning out for northwest 45 knots. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories west-northwest at 30 knots. Fox Island, storm warnings. North to northeast winds 45 to 50 knots. Seas anywhere from 19 to 22 feet. And Adak gales, north 40 knots, 22-foot seas, small craft advisories for the western Aleutians, north to northeast winds 25 to 30 knots. And on Tuesday, gale warnings from Shimia to Amchitka, west-southwest 45 knots, seas a little over 20 feet. Small craft advisories for Adak milder southwest wind at 30 knots and west 30 knots. Small craft advisories for Unmak Island. Unalaska Island, gale warnings northwest 35 knots. Southwest coast, north 30 knots for the day Monday. Gale warnings for the Pribilofs, northeast at 35. Small craft advisory St. Matthew Island, northeast at 25 knots. And first wind advisory for Norton Sound, northeast 25. St. Lawrence Island, north at 25. Outlook for Tuesday, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, northerlies 25 knots and 30 knots out of the north for both St. Matthew Island, Yukon Delta Coast. Gale warnings for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, northwest at 40 knots, and Pribilofs northwest at 30. Lighter winds up along the Arctic coast, central and east side, north to northeast 10 knots, except 20 knots Barter Island to the Mackenzie Bay there, northeast 15 on the west side, and Cape Beaufort to Wales, northeast winds 20 knots. Brisk wind advisories for the area from Wales to Cape Beaufort on Tuesday, north to northeast 30 knots, 20 knot winds western Arctic coast, central and east side, east northeast 10 to 15 knots. For tonight, big storm, snow and blowing snow, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, blizzard warning out there. Kodiak Island, snow and blowing snow developing, snow pushing into the Kenai Peninsula up Cook Inlet and along the North Gulf Coast. For tomorrow, snow and blowing snow, southern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Bristol Bay, and Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Fox Islands. That's all I've got time for.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.